and welcome to the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. My name is Kyle Case, and I'll be your host on this amazing journey as we attempt to help you get the most out of your life. Today's guest, Pat McEwen, grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania and has carried his work ethic established at an early age throughout his entire life. In high school, he competed in 4 sports: football, wrestling, men's gymnastics, and track and field. He earned a wrestling scholarship to a university in Pennsylvania and has set multiple pole vault records along the way as well. Pat became a marathon runner with a personal best of 2 hours and 36 minutes, completed more than 100 Nordic ski races to earn Centurion status. He's raced bicycles in events including LOTOJA, has 42 years of expert experience in windsurfing. He's explored backcountry skiing, mountaineering, and climbing, and tackled some of the West's most challenging Class 5 whitewater runs. Professionally, he spent 45 years as a respiratory therapist, including work in trauma ICU, Life Flight, and hyperbaric medicine. And if that's not enough, and come on, that's way more than enough, Pat is also a gifted musician, playing multiple instruments and singing in a band called River House Band. The band has performed in over 60 shows a year for the past 3 years. And if my math is right, that's more than a weekly show. Wow. Pat, welcome to the Active Life. You keep yourself busy.
Very. Yeah.
I think that's about the fairest statement I have ever made. So I do want to just get us started off here. You started out, you grew up in Pennsylvania, grew up on a farm. I come from a very rural place myself. We didn't own what people around us considered a farm, but we had plenty of chores to do. We had some chickens and horses and cows and things like that. Yeah. So I understand where you're coming from. There is a work ethic that kind of comes along with being on a farm, and you definitely had that. How do you feel like growing up under those conditions has helped you throughout your life, and certainly later in life, to stay engaged and stay active?
Farming's very physical. We had a 3-acre vegetable farm we sold at market. But I worked for 3 different dairy farms in Pennsylvania.
In addition to your own, you also worked for others.
In addition to doing all the hoeing and picking and shucking, I worked for 3 different other farmers, throwing hay, bringing cows in 6 in the morning, doing the milking and the shoveling manure and
all the fun things that come along with working on a farm.
That's what kids do in rural Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's work.
Yeah.
You don't need a work permit because I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
Predated all the
right back in the day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously, it's necessary. Like if the farm is going to function, there's work required to that. What lessons do you feel that you learned that you were able to carry with you from those days?
It's work. Your kids, you're pretty much set. When you're going through your pre-adolescent years, you pretty much set your. It's a
kind of set a standard, right?
You set a standard, yeah. and that's what you do when you're 12 is what you do the rest of your life.
Yeah,
kids. Parents need to teach kids a strong work ethic when they're very young.
I definitely think there's something to that. I also believe, and I think you'll agree with me, that we can learn new things as we go along and pick up habits, but we have to make the decision. Like, you have to decide that this is the kind of life that I want. And again, Pat, you've certainly had a lot of decisions that you made along the way that have created an incredibly adventurous life for you. I want to talk a little bit about your experience in the medical field. You worked on Life Flight. You were in the ICU. Trauma ICU. You've worked in hyperbaric medicine. You've done a lot of things in that area. I'm wondering if watching and seeing how fragile life can be has changed any of the decisions that you've made or the way that you approach life.
Not really. You value life. You value your kids and your wife, and life happens.
Yeah.
And death happens. I got to work.
It's true.
I got to fly all over the western U.S. and bringing patients in. When hantavirus broke out, I got to brought two of the patients in from Wellington. They were catastrophically sick.
Wow.
Did a lot of flights. You just make sure you keep tell your kids and your wife that you love them. And
Every time you walk out the door, right?
it might be the last. We had 3 different deaths on the Life Flight team. Shane Carnahan, I did a flight with him. He would work for the UU and Life Flight IHC. I flew with him, and 2 days later he was gone. He was on a rotor flight with the U, picking up an avalanche victim and a whiteout, and they flew right into the side of the ridge up Little Cottonwood. So
you never know.
you never know.
Which I think the big lesson there is just enjoy life, right?
Yeah.
Embrace it,
Yeah.
run after it, chase it, catch it, do everything you can to do, because you just don't know. You don't know. And that's life. We all face that reality
Right.
in the decisions that we make. But man, you really have chased after life. You have done a lot of fun things. We talked about whitewater rafting, kayaking, Class 5 rapids, marathons. Obviously, you're involved in high school sports. You and I had some overlap there. As I mentioned, I grew up in a small town in Idaho, not in Pennsylvania. But I played football. I wrestled. I would have loved to have done pole vault, but that wasn't available in my tiny little school.
Yeah.
We didn't have a track and field program.
Right.
So a lot of fun things that maybe you and I overlap on. But you've done a lot of high-risk things, what people would consider extreme sports, adventure sports. Is there anything that still scares you, or have you stared it all down and you feel comfortable just moving forward?
No, what scares me the most is just people and driving around traffic.
Okay, I get that.
I'm at ease in the outdoors. I've been up on the side of the Grand Teton and some of the 511 climbs in the all through. I did 100 climbs in the Wasatch.
Yeah.
Felt relaxed, but because I was in control.
And is that something that you picked up and learned as you went along, or was there never really any fear to start with, or was it something that you kind of learned as you went?
I haven't. I'm not a fearful person.
Okay.
I've never really had a whole lot of. Fear isn't on my list.
Yeah.
I don't fear things.
Okay. Well, I think there's a ton of natural, inborn courage there that you've obviously been able to put into good practice.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about climbing. There's a million things that we could talk about. You talked about doing some 511 climbs. Explain to us what a 511 climb is, first of all.
Okay, back this is old school. Back in the late 80s, the highest ratings were 511, 512, and then a few years later they went to the A, B, C, D.
Okay.
But back when I was doing a lot of climbing, John Gottman, that wrote the book on the quartzite in Salt Lake City, taught me to climb.
Okay.
He ended up dying.
So you learned from the best.
I learned from the best, but he died on Mount Cook in New Zealand.
Okay.
So back then the ratings went to 511 pretty much. Now they've expanded to some impossibly hard because of technology and boots and
Right.
cams and
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
When we were doing climbs, I did some of the first climbs in Zion Park.
Okay.
And it was all bongs. I had a whole rack of bongs.
So what's a bong for those of us that
It's
don't?
a hexcentric. It's a alloy hexcentric.
Okay.
It predates cams.
Okay.
And so we did the face of the Temple of Sinawava and some 3 other climbs that were like just 2-3 pitch climbs, and nobody was climbing back then.
Yeah.
And so
Really, you were a pioneer in a lot of ways.
it was a
in
lot
that
of fun.
sport.
Nobody was doing it.
Yeah. So, did you feel like you were pioneering something back then, or were you just having fun?
We were just having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just enjoying yourself.
Right.
So, what's maybe the most difficult climb that you've ever done, if you can rate them that way?
We did a lot of the really long climbs in the Wasatch up Little Cottonwood, the Finneret, 511, the egg route, 511. There are a lot of friction climbs in the Wasatch, and some crazy off widths were claustrophobic. But the Wasatch has some of the best 511 friction climbs in the entire West, outside of Yosemite, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you're a climber, you'll know what a 511 is. But for those of us that aren't, what can you compare it to? Like in another sport or at another point of reference? Obviously, it's a difficult climb, but it's the equivalent of what?
It's the equivalent of, well, say, like a 2:15 marathon time or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a hard thing to do.
It's hard, yeah. Or doing a 200-mile LOTOJA race. It's like it's up there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about marathoning then.
Okay.
How did you get into running? You obviously were active as a youth. You played sports. You worked at on the farm. When did you decide, hey, I'm going to be a runner?
Back in Harrisburg, my parents split up when I was 17, so I was on my own. I was living in Harrisburg, and I ran into this guy, Dwayne Johnson, that owned a bookstore. And he said, you're a skinny-looking guy. You want to do some running. So
here's the qualification. You're skinny.
Yeah. He said, and so I went out. I went out running with this, and he was like 10 years older than I was. Yeah, an older guy.
So when was this? What roughly time frame?
This was back in right post Shippensburg year. So this was 74, 75.
So this was even kind of before the big jogging boom of the 80s hit.
It was booming then.
Okay.
Because when
so
I ran,
a lot of people were running.
When I lined up at Boston and New York City Marathon, I was rubbing elbows with Frank Shorter and Billy Rogers. You remember Bill Rogers and Frank Shorter?
I don't know those guys.
They were the kings.
Okay.
Yeah, they
set the precedence.
They were running. He was an Olympian. Frank Shorter. But I would lined up in the frontier, and there's, hey, Frank.
Get a chance to meet your hero there.
Yes.
So your approach, the guy says you're skinny. Let's go running. You start running. Was it something that you immediately loved and wanted to continue to do?
Yeah,
or did you build
endurance. Endurance running is anything endurance. Cycling, 200-mile races, or running 26 miles is.
It's hard work.
Hard work. And back in Harrisburg, the king of ultra distance was Park Barner.
Okay.
And he would run from Harrisburg down into Maryland, which was 50 miles, to do a marathon the next day.
Oh, wow. So he wouldn't commute by car. He would run to go to the marathon.
He would run to the race, 50 miles across the border, to do a 26.2.
That's impressive.
He was crazy.
So you started out running. Did you know right away that you were going to do marathons, or was it just being active?
I knew I wanted to do that. I wanted to work up to it, and it happened pretty quick.
Yeah. So what was your very first marathon?
Oh, you would ask me that.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
I think it was Lebanon. Lebanon County, Amish country.
Okay.
They had some races down there.
But you've raced in some of the biggest races ever, including the Boston Marathon.
Yeah, did Boston twice, did New York City Marathon twice.
Tell us about the Boston Marathon experience. We know from around the world it really has the reputation of being the marathon. What is that like in your heart and in your mind as you step up to that starting line? As you said, you're surrounded by your heroes.
Yeah.
Nerves, just confidence, just trying to get the job done. What do you feel like?
No nerves. There was the biggest disappointment in all the races I did, though, because here's the sad story. The second time I ran Boston, I had a really good time. I came through the chute at the Prudential Center. There's a chute that you go through.
Okay.
And there were runners. There were a lot of runners coming through.
Yeah.
And a few of the runners came by. The finish was ahead of me. It was like a slow, and then it took a minute to get to check your number.
Okay.
So the guys elbowed me, and there were 3 or 4 guys elbowed by me.
That you were in front of.
That I was in front of.
Yeah.
I finished 103rd, and I did not know that medals were given to the first 100.
Yeah.
And they elbowed.
And those 3 guys moved past
me before they checked the numbers.
Yeah.
Anyway, I would have given anything for a Boston medal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So was that your first or second time?
That was second time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first time, more for the experience.
Yeah.
Well, and now I want to talk about some other things too, but your best time is 2 hours and 36 minutes. I'm not a marathoner. I've never done a marathon. I feel like maybe there's one inside of me somewhere if I can dig deep enough to get it. But I've never done it. But I do know that 2 hours and 36 minutes is blazing fast.
It's a 6 minute per mile pace.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for 26 miles.
Yeah. 6 minutes per mile for 26. It's fast pace.
It's a very fast pace. And I want to emphasize that. So for those of us that don't have that point of reference, to just run 1 mile in 6 minutes it's really an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Most people on earth can't do that.
Right.
Now, runners can do it. People can train to it. You can start where you're at and try to get up to that. I've run a 6 minute mile before, and I'm telling you right now, that is hard. And to think about doing that 26 times in a row with no breaks is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So when you hit that time, did you have a goal in mind? Did you know that's what you were going for?
That was my goal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you hit it.
I hit it. Yeah.
How'd you feel about it?
I was pretty happy about it. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Felt pretty good. Yeah.
Put a run together like that, put a goal in place, and then to achieve it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about windsurfing. So, I mean, you're all over the place, Pat. You're all over the place. You're running like amazing marathon times. You're climbing in the Uinta Mountains, Yosemite, Zion National Park, you name it. You're climbing everywhere that you can. On top of that, you're windsurfing. How'd you get into windsurfing?
Oh, that's what the guys were doing back in the the early 70s. It was like a new sport, and then I went up to I got good pretty rapidly and went into a smaller board and higher winds. I drug my wife and kids up the Hood River 6 years in a row.
Yeah.
And sailed 50-mile-an-hour winds up there.
Wow. In a river.
In the Columbia River.
Columbia River. Okay.
It is the best. There were like some on 50-mile-an-hour days. There were at the hatchery. There were 10-foot waves, big rollers. So.
I feel like most of us, if we're standing in 50-mile-an-hour wind, are looking to get inside.
Yeah.
We're trying to get away from that, and you're embracing it and running towards it.
Right.
So was this something that your friends were doing? Like, how did you get into it? When did you decide I'm going to jump on that thing and try to windsurf?
Yeah, a buddy of mine, Mark Dorbiala, got me into it, and we just were chasing wind all the time up in Salt Lake.
Yeah. So I'm not really familiar with the world of windsurfing. Are there competitions? Is it just for the fun of it? How does that work?
They do have competitions, but we were just in for the the fun of it. Yeah. Riding the waves. Yeah.
Well, that's incredible. I can only imagine the adrenaline and the thrill of a 10-foot wave on a little plank on your feet and a sail in your hands.
Right.
And off you go.
4 meters. Yeah, a little. Some of those 50-mile-an-hour days, you could have hung a pair of boxer shorts out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Well, it sounds like you've had just a ton of fun, as I said, in a variety of different ways. Yeah. What are life lessons that you have learned from some of these adventures, the challenges, doing hard things? What have you engraved on your heart and take that forward into your life?
Just when you decide to tackle something and go after something, you just you go at it with a vengeance and just learn to do it as well as you can do it.
Well, I think from what I hear and what I understand, you have definitely been an example of that.
Yeah.
So thanks for the example and congratulations on some incredible adventures. Yeah. In addition to doing these amazing things, you've also become a guide. So you have the opportunity to help other people experience some of the things that you're talking about, the things that you have experienced. First of all, when did you become a guide? Was that something recently, or have you done that for a while?
I moved from Salt Lake. I was working for IC for 38 years up north. And when I moved down here, Bill Ennis over at Dig Paddle Sports immediately put a hook into me when he found out my
some of your background,
my curriculum vitae, and he had me doing guiding 8 years ago when I first moved here.
So you've been doing it for a little while.
Yeah, he's a good guy, good business, good preceptor. I've learned a lot from him, and I think he put a hook in me because of my medical experience.
Yeah,
you can run into some real trouble out there on the lake when it gets really windy, when it's 105 degrees and you're looking at the petroglyphs, the rock's 120 degrees.
Yeah.
And I've had to firemen's carry clientele down the rocks and to get them to sizzling in the water to cool them off.
Yeah.
Because they were about to go down from hypothermia. So he likes me for my medical experience as well as a sports experience.
Well, I can only imagine that he would look at your experience and think, "This is my dream come true. This is my dream. This is my dream guide."
Yeah, I've worked ski patrol for a bunch of years. I worked the 3 departments at the hospital for over 40 years in trauma units and flying and taking care of CO poison patients and hyperbaric. So,
which do you think is? I don't know if it's fair to say better or funner or more satisfying. Doing the things yourself for the first time, getting good at it, having that experience yourself, or guiding and training and teaching and watching somebody else have that experience?
At this point, when old guys, I would automatically have to say teaching people to do what you've experienced all your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a story that kind of illustrates that, where you've been able to help somebody?
Not really. What's really odd is Bill just randomly schedules me for tours.
Okay.
And what's really odd is about 50% of the time I'll get a group of people, and somebody in the group has a major medical background.
Yeah.
And so you get to tell all the war stories.
Yeah.
About and you teach people, when you're paddling, whether it's stand-up paddling or kayaking, you can teach them little tricks. What's popular now is stand-up paddling.
Right, yeah.
And there's all kinds of neat little tricks that you can show them. There's a dozen different techniques that they get. The light goes on, and they're like imprinting little ducklings. And it's just fun to watch them. They get it right away. And and they're all lit up and excited.
There's got to be some real satisfaction in that, especially in your life, knowing that. I mean, you've done that yourself. It might have been years ago, but you had that experience yourself. You tried the thing, the kayaking, the stand-up paddleboard, the running, whatever it was, wrestling, football, it doesn't matter, whatever it was.
Right. Yeah.
But something lit up inside of you. You know what that feeling is. It's got to be satisfying to kind of pass that along, pass it forward, and help somebody else feel it as well.
Yeah, you want to give people, when they have a passion, they think they might want to do something, and they instantly develop a passion for it. The lights go on, and the big smiles. You've done.
It's got to feel good.
You feel good about it.
So I want to ask you a little maybe philosophical question, but obviously you've done all these amazing things. We've talked about a handful of them. There's way more that you've done in your life. Why do you feel that most people don't take advantage of it and embrace those opportunities? What stands in our way, do you think?
Life. People are just busy. They're caught up in work and families and some things. Things like climbing and windsurfing. It's a fear factor. It's like I could drown.
Yeah.
The boat could flip.
And all those things could happen.
I could fall 30 feet and break a leg like I did once.
You broke your leg after falling 30 feet. Wow.
Trimalleolar fracture on the left side.
Oh wow!
Which kicked me from running really fast to cycling.
Okay.
I couldn't run anymore.
Yeah.
So I automatically switched to competitive cycling.
Let's talk just a second about cycling since you brought it up.
Okay.
Biggest race that you've done?
Well, the biggest race is probably the most grueling of the 200. The very first LOTOJAs were 205 miles.
Yeah.
Longest race in North America. Longest sanctioned race.
What does LOTOJA stand for?
Logan to Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just
I don't know if everybody's familiar with that distance there, but it's over 200 miles, as you said.
Yeah.
Mountains, hills, long stretches, you name it.
Yeah, and they. I rode all the way to the with a front pack. We were just pacing along. This is a funny story. Can I say this?
Yeah, tell us a story.
I was Sonny Greenwald and Barry McCarowitz, who was just an animal up north. He's a really gifted Nordic skier, and so we're pacing along, drafting, doing 20 miles an hour for for 200 miles and or for 100 miles. And I said, I got to pee really bad. You know, I was drinking. I said, what do I do? He said, just aim it toward my freewheel. And so we didn't even stop for a pee break.
You just keep on going.
You just hit.
You're trying to get the job done,
hit the
right?
bike, clean the chain off, and you just keep riding.
Pat.
And I went through a whole pizza pie between Logan and Jackson. You just
while you're riding.
Yeah, you throw a feed bag on over your shoulder and you eat a slice and
as you go along.
Yeah, you'd never stop.
Wow. That's endurance sports. You mentioned it earlier. Yeah. That's an endurance race.
Yeah.
Let's talk about music. So you've done all these amazing physical things, sports, challenges, adventures, hiking, kayaking, all this stuff. You've done all this stuff, but you're also a musician. How did music become a part of your life?
My daddy he played banjo, a little bit of guitar. He was a really good banjo player, and his radio was broken in the truck. He had an old beat up pickup truck.
Yeah.
And so he bought me a bunch of harmonicas.
Okay.
And so he had me play instead.
So you were the radio.
I was the radio. Yeah.
So you started out with a harmonica.
8 years old. Yeah. So play this song. He'd name songs, and I had to play them. Yeah.
Wow. So did you play by ear, or did you have
I played
lessons?
by ear.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I picked up guitar. Those years through Shippensburg, when I was going to Shippensburg University. To keep from going crazy, I would in between the chemistry biology classes, all
play a little guitar,
nauseating amount of studying.
Yeah,
I would just pick up the guitar.
Yeah,
so I started playing back then.
And so you obviously started playing for yourself and just for the enjoyment of it and the stress relief. When did you form a band, join a band? Was that early on as well, or?
Oh, back in Salt Lake.
Okay.
Yeah, back in Salt Lake about a dozen years ago, I drifted off to doing just like half-time, three-quarter-time work at Intermountain Healthcare.
Okay.
And I was able to start playing some gigs up at Snowbird, Park City. We broke the beer sales record at Snowbird.
Okay.
Our claim to fame back then was we broke the beer sales record at Snowbird when we played out on the plaza there in the spring.
Wow.
So,
and you continue to play to this day. 60 shows a year. 65
shows a year. Yeah.
That's amazing. Again, Pat, you've done so many things. You've covered the gamut from art to music to adventure to sport. What's the thing you're most proud of?
Most proud of? The kids, the kids, the family. They're always first.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they are gracious enough to let me take off on my 30-mile bike rides early in the morning and do all the things, taking off. Or I got into ski patrolling just so the kids could ski.
Yeah.
Because of financial.
Sure.
Hospitals don't make you rich.
Depends on your role, I suppose. But,
yeah.
I love that answer. I think that's so important. Family, friends, support, the people around us are what make our lives worth living, certainly.
Yeah.
But Pat, thanks for joining us today. You've done so many things. You're such a great example. We want to wish you the very best of luck. Stay safe in all of your adventuring, but just continue to enjoy the active life, embrace it, chase it, grab a hold of it, and just live it to its fullest.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of things to wrap us up today. Here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. I want to be honest. Time is flying by. We currently have well over 9,000 registered athletes for this year's games. Secure your spot in the Huntsman World Senior Games this year. You can do that, as well as find all the information you need about dates, venues, divisions at seniorgames.net. The games will run from October 5th through the 17th of 2026. So put that on your calendar and then plan to be a part of the Huntsman World Senior Games this year. At 83 years old, next week's guest, Kay Grundhouse, is a pickleball competitor, world traveler, realtor, hairstylist, and community volunteer who refuses to let age define what's possible. After discovering pickleball following the COVID pandemic, she found a new passion that fuels her active lifestyle of competition, travel, kayaking, hiking, volunteering, and inspiring other women in their 80s to embrace adventure and stay engaged with life. You won't want to miss that show. If you've enjoyed this show, and we hope that you have, you can get all the education and inspiration on the active life by subscribing wherever you find your favorite podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, Podcast Addict, or iHeartRadio, as well as others. You can also find this and all of our previous shows at seniorgames.net. So check that out. We'd love it if you took a minute to write a rating, write a report, give us a quick rating, shoot us some stars. That would mean a lot and really help us spread the word. Today's inspirational thought comes from Albert Einstein, who once said, "In the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity." Until next time, stay active.